It's actually Saturday, but happy Monday. We'll do that. We're gonna do a Carrie update. I'm in the throes of wanting to put more substance into our updates. And what I mean by that is, like, I think we still do this stuff. Like Joey's like my brother, the guy holding the camera right now. And we still do these updates where we're talking about like the work that's been completed. But I want to cover the build process. We did the fab diaries for a while. And I know like the most feedback I get from you guys, especially when I see you somewhere, you know, or messages or something, is always the fab diaries. That element of teaching is going to be a whole other thing, but at least I would just like to have coverage where you get to see the process. And it might not even be something where we're explaining everything like detail to detail, but it's just something where you get to watch the actual process and kind of see things be constructed. So that's what I'd like to incorporate into our channel, like saturate the channel. We'll do this stuff and then we'll have this other stuff that's like raw. You just get to watch all of this take shape, and we'll have someone full-time doing that stuff that can probably send stuff to Joey, and then we'll just drop that stuff for you guys. So anyways, Carrie, it's been a while. I think usually I'll look back on that last update and tag into where we left off, but I know we had all the back sheet metal done. I know we had the floors done. I don't think we had any of the instrument panel or the center console done. I know we didn't have any of that stuff done. This has been a digger. I talked about like having to do several dashes or instrument panels in a row, and that's been months of my life, is the T100, Carrie, and then the black Bronco behind you. And these things, we get good results, but there's a lot of time into these. Man, this thing's probably 10 weeks. 10 weeks of solid work on this thing every day. But what we have here is a complete instrument panel, center console, and we have this crazy upper console here. So I think the best thing I can do is I'm gonna pop through my little work hole over here, and then I'll be able to kind of talk from here. That's our back wall. We'll have optic armor. I know I talked about that before. Optic armor it's like your modern Lexan. When I was younger, I would always hear people talking about Lexan for their drag cars or something, or putting like a Lexan back window in. And optic armor is like a scratch resistant, fracture resistant kind of transparent material. So this stuff will get it. And then, you know, did a couple preliminary sketches, meaning rough concept sketches, where it's just the feeling of it. The upper console, I didn't do any of that stuff for. I just kind of matched what we had going on here. A thing to note here is this entire thing is removable. It's all steel. It's built specific for upholstery. There's just some welded in areas on the sides, then between the A-pillar and the secondary A-pillar, which we can go to, but really it's set up to just remove all of this, upholster it all, put it back in, so you're not having to like glue material into the car, and it's easy to wrap stuff around, and that's what the material wants when you're doing upholstery, is it wants to be able to wrap around the edges. I thought about where the stitches are going to go, where all the seams are going to go, and how that's going to look. Even adding some like step bead roll detail here into these guys. That'll all show through. And then gapping the stuff accordingly. Like everything wants to be 3/16 to a quarter. And why it's that is you want about an 1/8 inch of foam under the material, so it's not just, you know, you're not just wrapping suede on this, but it's kind of soft to the touch, and it'll give it a soft feeling once it gets the material over it. So, you know, like all the Cleco hits, this will all be hardware. There's not too much of it, but then that's nice because this thing can come off. It can get a nice stitch through here, you know, and then it can wrap over. You see the AC vent opening here. There's actually 2 AC systems in here. There's one that's going to go behind the passenger pod, and there's one that goes in the center here. So there'll be 8 AC vents total, or HVAC vents. The one thing we should talk about is this. I think that's maybe the most switches ever. There's also a missing 8 button here. Joe, you ready for quick math?
Quick math?
Yeah, 53 plus 8.
53 plus 8 is 61.
That's pretty good. I did it in my head too. There's 61 buttons to press here. And I don't know exactly what all those are for. Tanner's going to do the electrical in here. Tanner with Independence Electric. Tanner said he had to talk Jeff down or talk him out of more keypads. I don't have an answer for this stuff. I don't, like, it's just too many. What do you do? I think it looks cool. I think if it was all switches, I love the aircraft vibe where it switches with like breakers, you know, where you can like pop them back in. Those are sick. But all this, I'm gonna trust the process here. When I think about like the options, I know this truck is fully loaded. It has every single option, but I don't know, like the way I'd want to run this thing. This is a tangent. The way I'd want to run this thing is I'd want to have minimal, and I'd want the truck to operate like you put the thing in park and the dome lights come on. You open the door, the dome lights come on. You close it, you know, it goes into drive, the dome lights fade out. You open the back hatch, the dome lights and the power and everything turn on back there. You open the front clip, same thing. Then you have different points of access lights or map lights, stuff like that. So I like the simple but integrated, you know, programming style luxury. But this is cool, and it's kind of per Jeff's request. So we really wanted to tailor this thing into looking like a, you know, like a cockpit of a plane. And keep some good streamlined shapes. See if I can get low here. There we go. So that's what we have. You can see there's dead pedals. I like the detail we can put into dead pedals. Diminishing returns. There we go. You know, where we can tie stuff in, and you know, the reverse flared holes like that are just a great thing for grip. I don't think there's any better way to do it. But you can see like the third seat hit right here. That's where your feet will go. Passenger has several, like that's the other thing here is there's several ways of adjustment. So you can be like flat foot down here with your toes here, still getting grip, and then you can do a heel hook on this upper portion with your feet kind of up here. So that gives you 3 different levels of adjustment, especially when you're riding in a truck and you're not driving it. You sometimes, if it's for hours, especially this is a Mexico truck, you want this thing to be like where you can adjust your feet and not just be stuck. You know, like some center mount trucks, you get 12 inches of footwell and you're not moving for a while. So passengers got the hit like that. Smaller GPS for the passenger. The middle GPS is almost like just a display. Maybe put a map on there, put like a mile per hour, and you're not sitting there doing programming. Again, this is not like a race duty pre-runner. This is just a luxury pre-runner to go have fun, to be super comfortable, probably have the windows up 100% of the time, pressurized cabin. So it's more just the ergonomics of having these things, but you're not like constantly putting waypoints in or anything like that. If you do need to do that, you can do that with the passenger. But this big guy that's kind of sunk in the middle of the car here, that's just gonna be a display screen. There's a big Holly here. I know that's a weird name. I don't feel very professional with this right now. It's like a 12.9 or some 12.3 bullshit or something like that, but it's the bigger Holley screen. These are all 12 volts, so these will be charger ports. 1, 2, 3, 4. Just 2 cup holders, transfer case sticks. Obviously your shifter, 4L80. You know, there's a spatial thing going on here where I wanted to make this GPS in the middle just be like it's floating. I mean, you can see some bracketry in there, but once we get to the front of the car, I can kind of show you like through the windshield what this thing is doing. And that was the goal, is just to break the space up. And what I mean by that is not just have like a big face of stuff, but have things where they have dimension, and it makes it a lot less like claustrophobic feeling and a lot less blocky and chunky when you're sitting in here. One thing you might notice is the height from the top of the instrument panel or the cowl here, you know, to like this is the cage tube, right? So where this upper console mounts, that's just a direct Zeus button or a quarter turn fastener with a spring plate right to the tube for the cage, the upper windshield tube. That looks like a small window, but when you're sitting there, that's all you need, because this front clip that's on this thing, when they make these Raptor clips, 7 feet almost of like overhang. So from like the windshield wiper cowl to where the, you know, corner of the headlight would be is like 6 foot plus. So really you think like, oh man, it's so high I can't like see over it. But the thing is, when you look in the seating position here, the seats aren't in, but when you look, like I sat there in a mock-up position, and you still can't see past, you know, you see green, the exterior color of this thing, instead of just the dash. So like the cone of vision is still right, and it's all you need. So it looks like chopped, but it's perfect. This is another Holley display. So this is just going to be for your third seat guy. If he wants to watch some of the temps and stuff, they can. But again, it's really just a cosmetic thing. Just kind of just for looks. If there is someone that needs to be doing that, then the third seat person, if there's something going on maybe with the car where like something's wrong, it's running hotter, we need to get back, we have 300 miles still, just keep an eye on something, then that's what this secondary screen can do. Again, this whole thing's going to get upholstered, so like you can see there's some gaps. What we'll do is like this is the actual roof, it's got like a Line-X coating on it, but this will get foam, this will get like a suede, and I think some people are going to hate this, but it's going to get a Starlight headliner, like a Rolls Royce in some of it. So you can see these trim panels that kind of run the perimeter of the tubes, you know, just like to close out the gap from the roof to the tube. And all these will be upholstered too. So I think it'll be a really nice breakup, because you're really just going to have the Starliner in these triangles, and then the rest will just be upholstered. So the breakup's going to be amazing. Something else to look at, this is an overhead console. So this is housing the intercom, the race radio. Like your radio is usually just something where you turn the car on, it's set to a channel like Weatherman or something, or BFG, and it stays there. If you need to adjust it, it's not something where you're doing it on the fly. So it's something you hardly touch, and I'd rather just bury the thing somewhere. Especially if it's like 100 watt, because it's got a big brain that's separate, so you can just bury the brain up into like the instrument panel cowl, and then you can just run the face of this thing. And then you have your intercom, and then I put 2 more ports up here for charging. Actually 4. These ones are really cool. They have a display that shows the actual amperage that's going through there. And then obviously your intercom. The intercom, usually one adjustment for the intercom, because it depends on who's riding with you. You know, you also don't want to hear people sometimes. Like I remember when I used to ride in a 16 car with Andrew Neal, and I would make all these guttural like, so he'd adjust this thing as needed, because I was more or less holding my breath while my organs felt like they were coming loose. So that stuff's concealed in there. I like this catch. That's cool, but I really think like just it opens too easy. And I've been in enough cars where I don't trust that, especially if you're just doing some hard hits and I don't want this thing coming down and like swinging right in front of your face. So we'll probably put like a secondary, like a bar catch in here, and it won't be as tasteful aesthetically, but just for what this thing needs, it'll make sense. Like it's just to have it streamlined like that. I don't know if I have any better ideas right now. That's just the clean thing is, you know, I don't know if it just sits right here and it's just a catch, you know, for something simple, maybe it just goes over here, and just a really clean mechanism that just does a secondary latch on that. Something else to note, I hope you guys are seeing this okay. I know there's like a lot of dimension, and I'm trying to articulate the best I can to get in here. If you see this mesh opening here, there is, can we see in there? Okay, kind of. You can kind of see that's a Baja Designs map light. It's elevated about 3.5 or 4 inches up past this mesh. So what this is going to do is this is going to give you an ambient light that's going to shine down, and it's going to be this mesh pattern. So this will shine down on this whole entire control canopy here with like a mesh pattern that's ambient, and it can just be on, and it's not going to be too bright because it's not direct, and it's inches away from that mesh pattern, so it should be a projection of that pattern, if that makes sense. And it should filter, the mesh should kind of filter the light so it's not just a concentrated amount and it's like broken up. So I'm hoping that's going to render the result that I'm looking for there. Some other treatment we did down here. This is obviously the pedal controls. You have your dead pedal. I like to add like a retainer, you know, like a side retainer on this thing so your foot doesn't get too squeezed over into the corners. Like when you're using these, usually you're putting a ton of force into this stuff. So I'd rather have it where like you kind of have a barrier or a bumper here. And then what we did is we added a little heel grip on this lower portion. And that's kind of just to make the ergonomics easier. When you're really stabbing this stuff, cool. But when you're just chilling or you're doing medium driving, then it's nice to just have your foot where it doesn't want to bounce around or move around. And then we literally just made like, that's like just your high level of what you'd get at an AutoZone, you know, except they're hand built and they're hand shaped. And I shouldn't fucking say that, but you know, it's a pedal cover. So that's essentially what that is. Make sure I cover all the stuff before I get out of this thing. Were the jack mounts welded? I don't know. So jack mounts welded. I think you can see there's all this trim, right? Let me get this low position. There we go. So we'll probably want to continue this, like this pattern you see of like trimming out all the roll cage tubes, because you can see it looks like 2 different spaces right here. So if we just run on the back side of the B-pillar tube and then we run continuous trim panels out back, then it'll match and it'll made up to this guy back here. So a little bit more in here. It's been a grind. Got to a point with Jeff, you know, he really wanted to get this interior stuff done before we moved to the front of the car. So we're really at that point now. Where we're going to start moving to the front of the car. More ducts for AC, or more vent openings. Something else too, all of the shifter mount and the levers or the sticks for the 4-wheel drive, all that stuff is on its own hard mount in the car. So like that's why I like to do a lot of these, like these base plates that go like a capture plate, because then I can just undo this and I can work all on the inside in here and then put this bastard back on, and it looks, you know, it's a nice treatment too, because this will just be powder coated. It won't have upholstery on it. Same thing with all this stuff, right? This thing comes out, the bezel around the shifter comes out, and it should clean up really good. I think I want to get out and explore a little bit of the detail, on the secondary A-pillar, and then also let's cover the streamline tubing and the opening like in front of the middle GPS. something to note too is the actual flow. It's not a traditional 96 Bronco. It's this Raptor kind of thing, right? And I'm not terribly upset with the styling of this. You know, and remember we have, did we cover the fenders, the clay?
I don't remember covering them in detail.
Okay, well, ready for another tangent? Let's hit this thing. So this is old, but you can see what's going on here. We had Mario come in and we had him shape new fenders because this thing is on like a short bus special program. You can kind of take this in right now and I'll go show you the other side. Well, what I was getting at is I apply a lot of this design into the interior. I don't want to open up the door and then it not have the same feeling or the same language be, you know, missing in the inside. So really finding a lot of the flow here in design is to help what's going on the outside. But I like this detail. This is the only welded part of the whole dash or instrument panel is just this guy, this little piece. And then this whole portion comes off. You can see the capture, the Cleco capture, and then you can see the front Cleco capture. You know, the profile too. Let me get that zoom going. I really like this raise. There's a lot of good shape here. But it has just kind of came with starting on the project and then just going with the flow of like what it wants. That's why I say preliminary on the sketches, because I'll get something going where Jeff can be like, yep, that looks good, I like that. And then it's not so tight where it's gonna look exactly like that, but it's enough to bank on the flow and then we improvise from there. But I wanna show you the GPS. So see, this is how it's floating. You can see there's a nice like spatial thing. This is completely welded and finished all the way around. And you can see the brackets for the GPS holding it. And you can also see the space under the GPS. So there's just a nice tray there. And it's not so much that that would be used area. I'm just trying to negotiate getting up here. It's not so much that this would be used area, but that's why I just wanted to break up the space. So it's not just blocked in, chunked in, and there's some really good symmetry here. This thing's strong. So just the whole flow of this thing, pretty pleased with. You know, as far as this portion, this is symmetrical. You know, it's just about what's under these cowls that, you know, brings back the asymmetry. So again, it's all removable. Well, I guess this is another welded piece, but that's just like a retainer. And then, you know, we put in our signature streamlined tubing, which the streamlined tubing is essentially a teardrop, right? So what do I mean by that? There's a major axis and there's a minor axis. And then there's, you know, the actual chromoly tube is shaped like a teardrop. So that's what this is. It's pretty expensive and it's definitely used for specific things, and the intrusion bars are a perfect candidate for its use. So you kind of see what's going on. There's some pretty good symmetry. I just like to see when the shapes hit together. So that covers the inside. Let's do the short bus talk really quick. If this is repetitive, then thanks for tuning in and we'll talk to you next Monday. If you want to retouch on this or you aren't familiar with this, this is an extended wheelbase. It's 120. Should we measure it really quick? Let me measure it. All right, it is 120. We're good. I was like, why doubt? And I can just verify. So it's 120 inches now. It's 5 inches short of, like, at least for me, that preferred sweet spot of 125. But what it is it's not a stretch Bronco. That's been the play with this thing the whole time, is the actual, from, you know, the front clip to the rear portion, it's the same length. So it's really just an extended wheelbase stock length Bronco. And it puts this tire at a deficit here, where if this is the rear, you know, I know we've covered this stuff before, but if this is the rear, look at the overhang. It's sketchy. So Mario came and built one side, or shaped it, scanned it all. That's at Fiberworks right now. Jason's taking care of these. We will have production bedsides. Now, if any of you guys are into like the front clip and you want to build a Bronco like this, we will have spec bedsides that you can put onto your Broncos, so you can do the same thing here. If you're into getting weird like this, I would definitely recommend putting a spare on here, just to draw the proportion out a little more than just the back tailgate. So these should be done in any day. And it, obviously, once we get them back, like you can see there's some damage here just from it, over time. It's been months, but we'll open all this up. This will have a really big cut where you'll be able to see like the shocks and all the inner workings. So next step on this thing is going to be just wrap this stuff up, probably do the appointments like I'm talking about from the B-pillar back, seat mounts in, finalized AC units mounted, and then get this front going. Really try to make the most efficient time we can out of this, because it's really close. I mean, the back is essentially done. We need to finagle exhaust in here somewhere after we do the headers. That is going to be something I need to negotiate space with and packaging back there. Then it's just going to be little stuff, but really like the big chunk that's left now is engine cage, cooler mounting, motor placement, headers, all that fun stuff in the front. So that's your Carrie update. Hope you enjoyed. I'll see you next week.